Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of Teams Like Brighton. In case you haven't noticed, my voice is a little hoarse, and the mood, shall we say, is a little bit underwhelming, shall we say. It's not a good day at the moment. It's the morning of the day, morning of the night, morning. The morning of the day or the night before, whatever, I don't care. It's the day after the FA Cup semi-final. I'm still heartbroken, Richie. You may have enjoyed that little slip there from me, but yeah, it's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. And I think it's pretty fair to say that the better team lost.
Yep.
Brighton, I'd say, created the better chances. They were the team trying to win the game. It seemed, I do, you do sometimes respect people's tactics in terms of, well, Brighton's strength is drawing you in and then outmaneuvering you and stuff like that. So you have to maybe play the game. But I just thought that the attacking intent and vigor was all from Brighton. It's interesting. I just saw a video from Simon Jordan, and he basically, obviously a former Crystal Palace owner and fan, said he wanted Brighton to win, and he sort of sarcastically applauded United for having 500 million worth of players on the pitch, 200 million on the bench, with Brighton having about a sixth, a fraction of the cost of the squad that they've assembled. So he took no joy from that. And I think it was just one of those days where they just didn't quite have that cutting edge and that composure in the final 15 yards or so. They just couldn't quite find the right pass, or the decision making let them down a little bit. Some people were fantastic. For me, Caicedo was the best player on the park.
Absolutely.
McAllister also was really, really good. Dunk, fantastic at the back. We'll come on to him a little bit later, but I thought Solly March held his, should throughout the contest, should hold his head high because he puts in a really good display. Some maybe not so good. I didn't think Dennis Undav was that convincing off the bench. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka did a pretty good job on Karamatoma, maybe even won that battle, which is not something that many can say this season. They just didn't quite have the options off the bench, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But I mean, credit to all the guys who stepped up for the penalty spot. There were 6 from Brighton, 6 fantastic penalties, and then unfortunately, as Lewis Dunk said, unfortunately someone has to miss, and there's always going to be a winner. So Brighton can definitely be proud of their efforts, especially getting to this stage. They were a better team on the day, but unfortunately, luck was not quite on their side. But it's still they should definitely be proud of this run. But it might be it's definitely a sense of what might have been. What about you?
Yeah, exactly that. I thought Caicedo was a real leader in the midfield. Like, he just did not want anyone to pass him, and if they did, they've got him to deal with from the side or coming from behind. He was just everywhere. He was a rash, and it got a lot of fans excited. Every time he went for a tackle, he won. I'm trying to think if he conceded a foul. I'm sure he probably did, but he didn't put a mistake. There wasn't a mistake in him at all. McAllister was superb. When Welbeck went off and Undav came in, you could see that there was a change in formation, and McAllister was going up a little bit. Then Gross got moved over into midfield. Veltman coming on for the last half an hour of normal time anyway. And you could see McAllister's just there. He's almost, I think De Zerbi was saying about how McAllister's working his way up in the Lallana role, and you could see sort of like the instructions that he's playing and sort of some of the off the ball roles that we're used to seeing from Adam Lallana are rubbing off on McAllister as well. And I thought that was really great to see that there's some leadership there in that midfield, which was a little bit of a concern of mine, because I think that was quite something that we lent on Lallana a bit too much. But it's great to see that it's been rubbed off on McAllister. Matoma had his off day, and it came in the form of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which will probably bring much joy to many Palace fans in that aspect. But you can't fault it. Wan-Bissaka gets a lot of criticism in the past because of him being played in a position he's not familiar with, and when he's played to his strengths, he is a superb defender. He's a superb right back, left back, right back, full back. So he was always bound to have a difficult shift. And all I can say is that with the frustrations that we had, and we had some really good chances, Undav had a great one, and it just looked like from where I was, the ball was just underneath his feet, and he was just trying to take that touch to get himself to an angle to have a shot, and it just never came to fruition. There were just so many opportunities that we had in the final third, and it just lacks that something. It lacks an Evan Ferguson, shall we say, and it just lacks. I think it was a great example of the lack of squad depth that we have in comparison to Man United. I'm not saying that we've got an issue in squad depth. It's just the fact that we've got very, very young squads, very unfamiliar and uncharted territory for us. An FA Cup semi-final against a team of worth hundreds of millions of pounds, guided by a manager who is used to this scenario when he was at Ajax, and a team that's played at the highest stage week in, week out, the best competitions. They know exactly how to deal with it from a mental perspective. So don't get me wrong, I'm proud of the boys. It was just always going to be, regardless of what the bookie said and regardless of what you're saying about United's injury concerns, there was always going to be that chance that United just had that mental battle. And if it did cut, and it did, for me, it came to that, and there was only ever going to be one clear winner, and that's United, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go into a bit more depth on that sort of squad depth comment. So earlier this season, the website CIES Football Observatory looked at the squads and how much they cost to assemble, and this was back in September. So obviously there has been a transfer window since then, but not a great deal has changed for these two teams because obviously Brighton only spent, I think, under 10 million on Buonanotte, and then I think 5 million maybe on Ayari, so it hasn't gone up much. But as of September, it said with add-ons, Brighton's squad cost was 146.7 million. Guess how much United's was?
I'm going to say 950.
Pretty close, 885. So that's, basically 6 times more than Brighton. So it obviously that is not a crumb of comfort for Brighton fans and yourself, obviously, after that defeat. But it does show that with the right owner, the right structure, you can really punch above your weight. And hopefully Brighton continue to do that in the league this season, because there is still a lot to play for with hopefully European qualification. But we'll get onto that in a little bit. But just on the strength and depth point, Manchester United obviously brought on 5 subs, Brighton 2, with Undav and Veltman coming on, Welbeck injured, and then Ciso coming off. Would you have brought on anyone else, or do you think that is just a sign that maybe Brighton don't quite have the options available because they have quite a lot of injuries at the moment?
I'm just kind of refresh my mind in terms of who did we have on our bench, because really I remember taking a look at our bench and I just think we don't have a lot there. I think for me personally, the only person I thought of was Buonanotte. I can see why we took Ciso off. I didn't think he was that effective.
Shall I just quickly run down the substitutes?
Go on.
Do you want me to run
Go
through?
on,
Yeah. So obviously you got Jason Steele, goalkeeper, Levi Colwill, centre back, But the defence were pretty good. Or obviously kept a clean sheet for 120 minutes. That wasn't really an issue with Adam Webster there and Lewis Dunk. Undev obviously came on. 19-year-old Yasin Ayari, midfielder. 21-year-old Billy Gilmore, midfielder. Van Heck, backup centre back. Veltman obviously came on at right back. 18-year-old Buonanotte, and then 20-year-old, usually under 21 player, Odeluga Afire, who's a defender. So that does show there's not that many options.
Look, yeah, exactly. I think the only two we could probably think about is Buonanotte and Ayari. When they have played, when they've made their appearances from off the bench, they've left an impact, and I think we could have definitely explored that. But however,
I guess who would you take off then?
That's the big question. You got to kind of think, well, what can they do differently that the players on the pitch haven't done? And I suppose the only thing that we needed was a goal. And I think in De Zerbi's eyes, he's looked at the bench, goes, "Who could give me that goal? We're creating the chances, but we're not finishing."
Yeah,
Buonanotte maybe, but I think if he's in that mindset of if it's going to be a maybe, it could also be a no. So he wanted definites in that situation, and it's just not. It just didn't seem to be the case. And I think when you're in that situation, and then the next question goes, well, who's a better penalty taker? If you look at Buonanotte, you're looking at Gross or Caicedo or McAllister coming off. Really, in my eyes, I'd be thinking, well, Gross has been a penalty taker before. Caicedo is quite comfortable from the spot at times, and McAllister's done it for Argentina, so why not with us? So there, you've got three penalty takers there already that you just think on paper they're higher up the pecking order than Buonanotte. Yasin Ayari's not really in that mix, really. Maybe in hindsight, we could have gone for a fluid attack. No recognised striker, but Buonanotte, McAllister, and Matoma are all just rotating in and just utilising the space and just having a shot at goal. They all got a keen eye for goal, so why not? I think it was the right move to move Gross in the midfield. Everything there just didn't seem. Yeah, it just didn't seem right. It just didn't seem the right call for us. And it is testament to the bench that we had, and you look at the bench that they had, and they had the better players, and we made two subs, and they had 5 fresh faces on the pitch, which sadly was that little bit different. And I'm still annoyed by Weghorst's little antics just before Solly March's penalty.
Yeah, well, just touching on Solly March, I've just seen Brighton have tweeted out a caption or a photo of Lewis Dunk hugging, obviously, almost an inconsolable Solly March after that penalty miss. And it's a little caption from March. Maybe he tweeted it or Instagrammed it. He said, "Yesterday hurt. These moments don't define you. It's how you bounce back. Thanks for your support. 9 massive games to go." I think everyone, Brighton fans, is probably wishing Solly March the best and giving him a hug as well. But just on that, a couple of comments after the game from first De Zerbi and then Dunk just shows that there's such a great team spirit and support network at Brighton. So after the game, De Zerbi was asked, what did you say to March? Obviously, because he's unbelievably despondent after that heartache. So he said, "Not too many words. I told him I was a player and made mistakes and penalties, and it wasn't a problem. We reached Wembley because of his performances. He was one of the best on the pitch, and I'm proud of him." And I just listened to that in the press conference room at Wembley, and I just thought, this is just such a great leader. This is someone you really want to get behind and fight for, because just words like that, it's just beautifully put. And just to quickly add, and I'll throw it back to you, Tom, just to get your thoughts on that. So Lewis Dunk after the game, obviously so dejected as well. He spoke to Johnny Cantor of the BBC, and he said about March, he's obviously gutted, and we're all gutted for him. I've known him for a long time. We grew up together at this club, been on an incredible journey to get the club to where it is now. We've been side by side for that whole journey, so it's not nice to see him like he is, but it takes some courage to take a step up to the occasion like he did. Someone's got to be that person to miss, and someone's got to be the hero. Unfortunately, Solly missed, but it wasn't just his fault. We have to finish the game and score a goal before it gets to penalties, because penalties are a lottery then. It's just, yeah, those are two great leaders you've got there, and Brighton are very, very lucky to have them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in this unbelievable privileged position where we've got so many leaders and characters in the dressing room, and it's led by De Zerbi himself, and he's very much an encouraging leader in the fact that he wants other people to get involved and have their say, not to be afraid to speak their minds and be open and frank and honest. And I think that's probably testament to why we have been so good this season, because they're all on the same page. No one's hiding their emotions, it seems. And I think if you go to De Zerbi and you probably say to him, goes, I disagree with this gaffer, and you have their say. And you know, Brian Clough used to joke and say, okay, well, we'll sit down, we'll have this conversation, and in the end, we'll realise that I was right. I don't think you have that with De Zerbi. You have this kind of like, okay, I hear what you're saying. All right, we'll give this a try. If it doesn't work, then we're going to go back to what I do. And I think you have seen that before in matches. And if for the listeners there that have had the privilege of watching the Brighton match, and you can take note of like a player coming over and just talking tactics, and you can see them being animated as well and pointing out the little gaps and half spaces and what any other tactical terminology you might know. And you just see De Zerbi just kind of like nodding and agreeing and just saying go for it, almost like encouraging him to say yes, go for it, go for it. So I don't think it's even the fact that we've got an incredible tactician. We've got a tactician who wants his players to be tacticians as well and see the things that he can't see on the touchline. Because as players, you're in the best view. You're for your position, for your roles, you know exactly how the other opposition are playing, and then you're pushing it forward. And I think that comes back to why Solly March has been so bloody good for us this season. He is transformed. I remember an interview Glenn Murray did a while ago saying about how frustrated he was playing with Solly March, because he was at training Monday to Friday. In fact, he actually repeated this on Football Focus at the weekend, how Solly March was just this frightening and ridiculously good player Monday to Friday in training, and they just never translated on the pitch on the Saturday. And I remember times where Glenn, halfway through a passage of play or at the end of it, and we missed an opportunity, and Murray, the first thing he does, he just shouts at Solly, because he knows what he can do is frightening, and it just never seemed to come to fruition under Potter and under Houghton. Then De Zerbi comes along, and he's had 16 goal involvements in that time, 8 goals, 8 assists. And we're seeing someone who's finally unlocking his potential. And it's just so, I mean, I'm not even upset for him for missing the penalty, because fair play for him for stepping up. I think anyone in those sudden death moments, and you get into a point that goes, oh crap, we've got like this 8, who's taking next? So he just stepped up and he just went for it. And I think I'll give those plays that much respect, because they clearly got told you're not in the 5, so don't worry. And then when it got to sudden death, I think a few players worried, and I think fair play to March for stepping up. I think on foot. Moving on now, so we can brush over the match at Wembley. Going to Forest, I think he's going to get an absolute hero's welcome from the 1,900 odd Brighton fans that are going to make the trip to the City Ground.
Yes, and one thing that I really hope, I tweeted about this after the game. I really hope that he is not, isn't wallowing in that disappointment for too long. I hope that he can bounce back, because if you remember, Tom, obviously he missed a penalty in the Carabao Cup loss to Charlton back in December. And what did he do next? He went on an absolute tear. He scored an amazing goal at Southampton a few days later, and
Absolutely
because
ridiculous goal.
I don't think he'd actually scored any goals until Boxing Day this season. He'd got I think a couple of assists. But like you say, yeah, since then, I think in terms of the Premier League, I'm not quite sure in all competitions, but certainly in the Premier League, since Boxing Day, he scored 7 goals and got maybe 5 assists of that. So he's bounced back from that adversity. So I really hope that he can go again. This one might be tougher because obviously the stakes were bigger and its history was, not, well, it was definitely closer because it was, I think, last 16 versus semi-final of the FA Cup and at Wembley. But yeah, I really hope that he has that character and belief to bounce back, and I really hope he does, because that would be, real testament to the player that he is. But yes, so let's look forward to Forest. I'll just quickly talk about what De Zerbi said after the Man United loss. He was asked about, can you learn from this? What can you learn from this? And he said, you can grow better when you lose an important game. If you win, it is difficult to improve. On Sunday, we are very sad and disappointed because we have to be focused on the Nottingham Forest game and the last 9 games. I think everybody watched the quality of my team. If you're honest, you have to say we deserve to win. And we deserve to achieve our target in the Europa League, which is maybe an admission that he thinks Champions League is a bit too far. But that's what he's talking about. Shift straight onto Nottingham Forest on Wednesday. He said it's going to be a tough game at Forest. Obviously, they're fighting for their lives, but he said, I spoke with my players. We have to close this page in this sad day, but we have to be proud of their performance and proud for the people and the players. So they, can't rest on their laurels. They've got to kick on, bounce back from this, because they've got, I think, 2 games in hand on Liverpool, and they're 1 point behind. I think they've got 3 games in hand on Tottenham and Aston Villa. So there's so much to play for. It's going to be a really, really, really tough 5 weeks or so. They've got 9 games in that period, which is pretty nuts. And I do hope that some players do come back. Hopefully Welbeck's not too badly injured. Hopefully Ferguson will be back soon. I don't know if either will be fit for Forest. Hopefully Lallana can play some part this season, maybe Tarek Lamptey. But yes, these 2 games are massive, because if you look at the fixtures left and the way that the Premier League table is looking, Brighton have to go to Arsenal, who are currently in first. They host Manchester City, currently in second. They're away to Newcastle, currently in third. They host Manchester United in about 10 days or so time. They are some enormous games. So they've got Forest and Wolves in quick succession. These are the games they have to win if they want to have a fighting chance of getting to Europe.
Absolutely. And I think now we've got 9 games to really define our season here. We're in the business end, it's still to play for. We still have the possibility of getting Europa League football. And weirdly, I think it's now going to be like the fans' job here. It's going to be their biggest role they've ever had since the Goldstone era. That saved us from extinction. The fans' role there is significant, and everything after that has been because of what the fans did in the late 90s. Now, I think for that generation and new generation of fans, such as myself, now is that opportunity for us to really kind of like show, like, never underestimate the power of like the fans and the influence they can have and how they can carry a team. I think starting with Forest, we just got to go clean slate, show our love and affection to Solly March, because he's been unreal this season. And when we have showed his support, he's repaid in kindness. I mean, that Southampton goal was an utterly ridiculous goal to ever see with my own eyes. Probably second to Julio and Cisso's goal, because I think it mattered more because Solly March is a Sussex lad, born in Helsham, played for Lewis, had 2 spells at Brighton, and he's currently in the second one now. He's someone that we love dearly because he is one of our own. He's Sussex born and bred, so we will look after him because we're more or less in the same. We've got the same county. We're born and raised there, so and fans do have that affection. So I do think that Forest, we're going to probably be louder than we ever will do, and just carry this team, and just really kind of like show like we're on the same page as you guys. We believe in you guys. We will push you on, and we, like you say, our fixture list is ridiculous. And you've touched on who we have to face above us, but the last 10 days of the season we have, in no particular order, Southampton, Man City, Aston Villa, and I'm missing someone. There's another one.
Newcastle.
Newcastle. I think it is Newcastle. So four fixtures in 10 days, and they're the last 10 days of the season. That's going to be intense because you've got Newcastle fighting, you've got Man City fighting, you've got Aston Villa fighting. Southampton might be, if it's not a foregone conclusion by then. But even then, when you play against a side that's already relegated, they've got nothing to lose here, apart from either staking a claim that they want to stay at the club and they want to be part of it next season, or they're just fighting for another contract or transfer. So you've got all that at their disposal here. So it is all to play for. It's an incredibly insane season. I can't talk about this enough about how exciting this season's been, even from a neutral standpoint. Relegation is still up in the air, really. No one know. I think it's still about 7 teams still in the mix here, probably 9 at a push, mathematically anyway. But then you've got, there's still about 5-6 teams still in it, in the race for Europe. Even in the top 4, like, you've got 2 dead certs in City and Arsenal. But after that, you know, United can dip, Newcastle could dip,
Spurs did dip.
Spurs are dipping pretty badly, and they have no answer to that. So it's going to be incredible to see what happens next, because every single game week now from here on out is going to be absolutely pivotal in a lot of teams' seasons, including ours. So starting with Forest, which the City ground isn't an easy place to go. They got points against City and Liverpool, for instance, and they're going to be looking to get a result for us. The City ground is keeping Nottingham Forest up. I'm convinced of that. So if we could get a point, even a point there, I'm going to be really impressed. I'm going to be really happy with that, because that's a point more than what Liverpool got, and that's a point more than what a fair few other teams have got. We do need that win, yes, but we need to push on. And I'm just counting down now to when we welcome Manchester United to the Amex. I don't know whether or not I'm going to say. Oh yeah, I'm going to say it. I'm not. This might be an iconic Goldbridge moment here. I think Man United are going to get battered by us at home. I think we're going to be, we're a vengeful type. We're a vengeful side, and I think when they come here, they are going to be in for they're going to be in for a right battle, and I don't think we're going to give him a chance to breathe.
Like it. Just shifting ahead to going back to Forest again. Sorry. I don't think it's. I think when it's still, as you said, the day after. So I feel maybe wider judgments on certain people are maybe not quite fair, just for the time being. But I wasn't particularly impressed by Undav's performance on the pitch. Obviously, he took his penalty very well, and credit to him for stepping up. Would you, if Ferguson and Welbeck are out injured, would you start Undav up top, or would you maybe put Enciso there, or what would you do?
I'll put Undav. This is the thing with Undav. He's not getting a run of games, and he hasn't really had that serious chance. And I've actually had the pleasure of actually speaking to a few USG fans, and we were just talking about the players there. And the thing that they cannot get to grips with is Undav. And they said, if you think Matoma's class, Undav should be a world beater by now. He should be bagging in goals for you left, right, and centre. Yes, the Premier League is an upgrade, but Matoma hasn't had that much of an issue. I don't know why Undav hasn't pressed on with that. To me, I think it's very much a confidence issue that backdates to Potter, because Potter likes to tinker a little bit too much. And I think that kind of knocked Undav's confidence for 6. And I think that's kind of continued on under De Zerbi. But I do think that hopefully the semi-final appearance, granted it was from the bench, I think that should be a mark of kind of say, right, I've got to really kick on here. We don't want to be feeling like this if we miss out on Europa League. I've got a job to do here. Welbeck's going to be out. I've got no doubt about it for at least the next 2 matches. So Undav needs to come in and he needs to step up. And I do think he's capable for it. I think this season for him is probably going to be a write-off anyway. But if he could finish on a high and really stake a claim of being like, I want to be part of this team, I want to be part of this club, I think now is the perfect time for him to really seize his opportunity. I would personally start him for at least the next 3 matches, at least.
Oof, that's a nice vote of confidence. One thing this might perk you up a bit, Tom. So this week, Alexis McAllister was asked about his future. And we touched upon, I can't remember if it was the previous show or the one before that or whatever, but unfortunately his father, Carlos McAllister, was essentially it seemed like he was pushing for a Brighton exit. And he said, it's most likely that his son will play for another team. I'm actually quoting, I'm not just doing that for, shivers and giggles. But in contrast to that, and I think McAllister, maybe unlike some players, has not really messed people around. He's always been fairly consistent in the sense that he says, I'm very grateful to Brighton for what they've done for me. I will listen to offers, but I'm very happy here, which is just open and transparent. He's not sort of hinting the whole time or saying this and that, speaking out both sides of his mouth. So he said in the interview with ESPN, I won't do the whole quote, but this bottom bit is key. I respect this club a lot, Brighton, because I'm very grateful. Then in the summer, we will see. If an offer comes that can be good for the club and for me, we will all sit down and talk. And if not, I will stay very happy at this club. Lovely.
And you know what? Fair play to him. He's open and honest about it. And like he talks about, like, if there's a price that I can agree with and the club can agree with, then I'll consider it. But if I'm staying here, I'm also very happy here. Fair play. Like, you're open, you're honest, and you've got to respect that. You've got to respect that. He's only just signed a new contract, and granted, that's probably inflated his transfer value massively, which is an excellent bit of business on our end. But he's also here to stay in the long term anyway. So I think he's kind of like, yeah, in the summer, I'm very happy regardless of what happens. I think he'll probably have to be invested in the projects of a potential new suitor in the summer. I can't see him going to many
Chelsea.
places. Yeah. I can't see him go to many places, really. One, because he's going to be priced out of the market by many in Europe. So I think he'll be in the Premier League this season, whether that's with us or either United or Liverpool. If we believe the transfer rumours, then so be it. I don't get me wrong. I think if he stays, that's probably the best bit of transfer business we could do in the summer. But again, if he goes, fair play, opens up the door for Buonanotte or Yasin Yari to really step it up and see what happens there. But yeah, you got to respect it. You got to respect someone who's just so open, frank, and honest about it all. Got to respect it.
Yeah, and also I think it's quite funny. I tweeted about this yesterday, and a lot of people were tagging Fabrizio Romano because he's seemingly been pushing that move. But let's finish up, Tom. What is your score prediction for Nottingham Forest versus Brighton?
I'm gonna go optimistic. I'm gonna say we're gonna win 2-1. Undav double. Undav double.
I think, I think the Forest looked like they were maybe down and out, and then they put in a really good display that, from what I've seen, a lot of Forest fans were encouraged by the fight and their sort of tenacity and their 3-2 defeat at Anfield at the weekend. So that might sort of pit their tails up, but and their form is better at home because obviously I think their away form is the worst in the league. But I hope there isn't a hangover for Brighton, the FA Cup hangover. I think this will be a tight one, but yeah, I think I'm going for a 1-0 away win.
Ooh, love that. Love that. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for listening. For those who are going to Forest, enjoy. I'll be there as well. Don't be afraid to say hello for a pint. I had the privilege of meeting a couple of people to say nice things about our podcast, which is very refreshing at the weekend. So, and that was my highlight of the weekend. Absolutely take that. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe or follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. And come on, 9 games to go. Let's do this.